question of the day. Would you join a cult? Comment below. And I guess the kind of thing is like, I probably should define what a cult is. And from all my searches and research and sociology classes in college, undergrad, it seems like the only difference between like a church or a religion and a cult is simply like the size of it, right? And because it's like, would you join a church? A lot of people would say yeah. Would you join a religion? A lot of people would say yeah. Cult, nah, no. And that's bad because it's small. And that just like proves like how effective our high school programming was. Like in high school, we vote on who the most popular guy and girl is, football star and the cheerleader, and then they're like the homecoming queen and king, and we're like, they're the best because the most people like them. And that like transitions us perfectly into entering into a world where we vote, right? It's like enough people like this person, they're the best. Even like if it's during a pandemic where never in the history of time has that many people voted for this person, but everyone's just like, well, they're clearly the best, even though no one has ever recorded since that many people voting. Good people have spoken. Oh, someone yelling down there. And I'm just waiting for a moment to have people answer the question about a cult. Because typically, like, people's opinions of a cult is like, oh, they like lure you in as like a community, and then get you to donate your time and your money, and all of a sudden it's full on cult mode, and they're like, drink this Kool-Aid and kill yourself, which it seems the general consensus is killing oneself, not good, frowned upon. If we do it fast, like the whole fast suicide, people feel negative about that. However, someone wants to eat themselves into obesity and diabetes and kill themselves slowly, that's alright. No one's gonna be getting upset about that. In fact, you shouldn't even bring it up because it may make the person feel bad that's killing themselves. Because slow suicide, that's okay. Quick, not good. And those cults they're all about the quick suicide, aren't they? Like, I kind of wonder why that is, though. It's like people start off the cult, they're like, this is awesome. Got all my friends, no one's like fighting, everyone's kind of got common belief systems, and then at a certain point they're like, I didn't think this would work, so I have an idea. Let's just all kill ourselves. And then people just do it. So yeah, definitely cult, not good. But like, let's say maybe, what if it was like different? What if it was like, what if the cult was like, gosh, people are nice in this road, they need lots of space and wave. Good old Lake Goodman community, such good people. And what if it's like different kind of cult? What if it was like, the cult says, hey, actually we have the ability to like fix things. And like, we don't ask like for full commitment for our members. We just, we want you to like, just give us something, some exchange. That's not culty, right? The cult people have a skill or ability, and the people that want that skill or ability, they exchange value for it. And then let's say like this skill or ability gets to be super popular, and then people not in the cult are like, I wish I could have that skill or ability to have things fixed. And then the people in the cult are like, hey, we're a cult. I think every children should have this. And then the people that appreciate the cult are like, yeah, absolutely. We know that we like being part of this cult without having to commit too much. And I think this is where the transition happens. Because all of a sudden it's like, well, if we want to have this thing for everybody, then everyone's kind of gonna have to kind of buy into this cult a little bit. And then people all benefit from the cult. And then, but like, what if there came a point where the cult was like, hey, yeah, we have these things that we definitely give tremendous value, and but we have these other things that can't really show that they have value. You just have to believe in them. And by the way, now as a member of this cult, you have to do them. And if, let's say, you do have a negative effect, because we're not actually fixing anything, you can't actually sue the cult. Would you join that cult? And then, like, when there's like enough people that are like, I kind of liked the cult in the beginning when they fixed things, but now it seems like being a member of this cult actually just causes problems, and I no longer want to be part of it. What do and how do the other cult members feel about this? People leaving the cult, they feel negative. In fact, it is like a level of like viciousness, blaming the people that are trying to leave the cult for the problems of the world, telling them that their family's gonna die if they leave the cult. Shaming them, telling them that they'd be lost without the cult. No one's joining that cult, right? No one's staying on board that cult that requires absolute faith, even after the thing they were told their members to believe in has been shown to not be true. No one's staying engaged in that cult, are they? Would you? And I'm not saying that cult exists now. I mean, that would be crazy. Because it would be crazy. Like, it'd be crazy, like, if a cult got so powerful that they consumed $1 in every $7 in the United States. That would be wild, wouldn't it? It would be so crazy if a cult based on belief in products that have been demonstrated to not do the thing they said they did, and then just change the definition of what they do. It seems almost like an abused spouse relationship. You've known an abused spouse where they like work up the guts to like leave their partner. Like, this person is abusing me and not taking care of me, and then they just like get back together, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually they didn't abuse me. We just need to work on our communication. I need to learn that I need to shut my mouth and do what I was told, and they wouldn't hurt me. Whoopsie. Like, it'd be weird. You have the cult like that, and you had a following like that, like similar to abused spouses, where they like would be lied to, and then immediately just change the narrative to fit the abuser. It would be crazy to have a cult that promised an outcome, for example, healthy, happy families, and instead created drug addiction and chronic illness and cancer within the richest country in the world. That'd be crazy if that cult existed. That would never happen. Not in the United States. And it would be crazy, especially in the United States, where there's supposed to be a clear separation of church and state. Organizations that are based on belief systems are not supposed to get funding from the government. It would be crazy if an organization was able to get that large and they'd be directly funded by our tax dollars. What would you do if you found out about this? What would you do if you found out you're a member of this cult? Not a 10% tithe, but $1 in every $7 tithe. To then have the opposite benefit of what you're promised. It's kind of like someone was like a member of like a, church, that XYZ church, that says that if you believe in XYZ, you go to heaven, and then you are a person that believes in XYZ, and you die, you go to hell. You're like, hey, I feel like I was lied to, and then you're resuscitated, brought back, and then you're like, hey, I believed in this thing, and then was in hell. That was confusing to me. It'd be crazy to then continue to be a member of that church, wouldn't it? I don't know, I would be motivated to find a different kind of church, to find a different kind of cult, if I was part of that cult. It would be crazy if a cult got so powerful that they actually had direct influence over public education. That'd be crazy. And this cult profited by getting its members more and more dependent on them. And then it taught kids things so extreme, like that it is good to mutilate their body. And it'd be crazy if this cult got so strong that it actually was in control of the other churches. So for example, when there was a pandemic and churches, they love this thing about how they don't fear death and they believe in Jesus and his example. And I've read the Bible a couple times, not all the way through, just the words of Jesus, the ones that matter. And how he went and put his hands directly on lepers and wasn't afraid of them. But then during the pandemic, the churches that tell people that this is what they believe in then shut down and put masks on everybody and recommend vaccines. That'd be weird. That'd be weird if we had a cult that was that strong. Wouldn't that be weird? That'd be weird. And I guess it would be expected that when members try to get out of this cult, that they would get shamed, blamed, ridiculed, criticized, and propagandized against to the core. That would never happen in the United States. That'd be something in some other country. And so the question is, what would you do if you found out you're part of this cult? Well, I found out that I was part of it because during the pandemic, I didn't watch the news, so I wasn't really negatively impacted by the super scary stories. And I was like, actually, I just am a person that just followed Jesus' example and just did what he did. And I did my best with my body. I'm kind of a dick, but Jesus was kind of a dick also, but just to those vipers and snakes that have a tendency to want to poison and harm our children. And so I ended up doing the thing that I was told was impossible, which was staying healthy during the pandemic without masks or vaccines, and it was not well received. I gotta feel the re-indoctrination process from all the members of this church, this cult of medicine. I don't know if you picked up on that subtleness of my speech, as they all told me how I was going to be the source of death. And then time went on, and did that feel good? Let me tell you, for anyone that's trying to remove themselves from the cult of medicine, did it feel good not being part of that cool kids group? Yeah, no, it didn't feel good. No, it feels bad. I mean, they are so passionate, and they are so certain. But then, it's like this little thing called data. And reality, I like to live in, or doing hard things like running is good for you, and injecting yourself with chemicals and wearing a mask is bad. And so I ended up having, like 180,000 interactions with my patients, not a single hospitalization or death or chronic illness or spread of COVID. So the facts kind of was like reaffirmed my belief system in replicating Jesus' example, reassuring people that their faith in being healthy and then acting that way, some would call the placebo effect, others would just call our brain doing its job and keeping us healthy. And by the way, I wonder what organization brought up the placebo effect of your brain just keeping you healthy. Oh, ooh, sounds a little culty. And I was even assisted in my learning process through the government, and they also recommended that I fall back in line. And I, at that point, I was a little bit, I didn't really realize it was a cult. Because again, that's the thing, maybe you're there where you're like, I don't think it's a cult. I was there too. I was like, they're not a cult. They're just good people that don't have good tools. And so I showed them the tools that I had and the outcomes that I had measured, and people's oxygen levels normalizing, stabilizing, people that were like dying then end up not dying. And then I was thanked for my participation. That was really good. That was nice. But then, I ended up getting asked if I would join the Department of Health. I interviewed, and then I was told I was going to be on the Department of Health, but I had to be appointed by the governor. And how do you think the governor felt when he found out that I was able to do the thing that he just told everyone in the state could not be done? And that, by the way, all the things that they told us to do actually cause harm. Delay development of our children, increase the risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer, and mental illness and suicide. Oh, it's kind of like one of the head cult members finding out that one of the members telling everybody cult's bad. You did not appreciate my insight. And so I was then, and this is what will happen. You try to leave this cult, they're going to come at you, they're going to threaten you, they're going to tell you you're going to put you in jail, take away your kids. And I ended up, my whole team, they did not fare so well because the government came after them as well with threats. And threats were moral turpitude. The professional equivalent of raping a patient. So I don't blame all my team members at the time for kind of going back and taking plea deals and shutting down and breaking down, because it's hard work leaving a cult. the cult's gonna get you back. But for me, I'm too stupid. I'm too stupid to go back. It's probably because of all the weed I smoked in high school. I'm not smart enough to just fall back in line. And one of the things that ended up happening was I had all these requests for all these patient records, and then the Department of Health told me to turn over records without letting patients know that the government was asking for them. Wrap your mind around that little doozy. Turn in records without me telling the patient that the government was asking for the person's records. How would you feel if you found out that the government was asking for your records, your personal health information? Well, I apologize to the Department of Health because I said that's a clear violation of HIPAA. I would not be turning over records without telling patients. No, that's definitely not something I'm going to do because I have a signed form that says I do not do that. Then I found out that it's actually against the law. So as of right now, and all medical doctors know this apparently, I didn't know this. So right now, the government can access your personal records and use whatever is in your records in whatever way they want. I'm not saying that they would do something nefarious like a cult, but I feel good about it. And so I realized that, and did they threaten me again with the threats? It's like, oh my gosh, you think they would learn? Like, they threaten this guy with like fines and jail time, and it doesn't work. And so they threaten with jail time and fines, and we're gonna come get your records from you. It's like, go ahead and try. I'll be available. Let's see if you can get them. And so then my team imploded, and I realized that I can no longer be part of the Department of Health system, because that system is within the cult, and I do not have the power to change the fact that they can access my patient's records whenever they want without letting my patients know. I had $1 million practice, and I could not bring myself to sell my practice to somebody else because I could not know for certain that that person would not turn over the records. And by the way, you might ask, what is in these records? The top secret information. People saying that their necks and their backs hurt. It's so ridiculous. But the simple truth is, I had a legal document with my patients that said I don't turn over your records to anybody unless you give permission. I don't know about you, but I am a person that believes in not lying, especially when someone has put their trust in me. And I also believe in following the law, so I couldn't continue in that system because it is supporting the very cult that I am not want to be part of. So, lesson number 2: if you want to walk away from a cult, you are gonna lose everything. And as of right now, it's like a lot of people are stuck in jobs because they need their health insurance, because they have chronically bad health. because they're trained in the public education system to have bad health. Not because that they need their health insurance to make sure that they stay healthy, but just to make sure that they do not die. So you can see how brilliantly this cult has structured itself in every aspect of our life. And how did it start? It started just like any other relationship. I have a thing. I can provide stitches, set a broken bone. Gotta remember back 30, 40 years ago, cancer wasn't really a thing. It was pretty rare. Neurosensory processing disorders, they weren't a thing. They were rare. And then this cult took the relationship to like, yeah, you never know. You might need us. Maybe everyone should be part of us. And that's ultimately what led me to the place where I'm now, which is starting a cult. Except my cult doesn't have a building, because my cult understands a basic truth, which is that Jesus set the example. Do what he did, and you will be living in the presence of God. Your house is your body. And ultimately, the biggest deficit that the world has right now is the skill set that Jesus had to heal with his hands, with his actions, with his words. And it's an interesting concept to dive into, because now science can kind of explain it. Because when you are around a person that is healthier and stronger, like, did you know that your nervous system will actually upregulate and become healthier and stronger? Have you noticed that? Like, just get around some people and you're like, yeah, gosh, I love being around that person. They're awesome. It's actually probably not that often, not that common right now, because everyone's so neurologically imbalanced. And then the second thing is be able to actually put your hands on somebody and heal them. And not in like a theoretical way, right? I've had this conversation with a lot of church leaders. And again, it's stupid to me because, again, they're part of a cult. They don't even realize they're part of a cult. And the pandemic demonstrated that. Where, like, oh yeah, we do healing. We pray and demons come out of people and they come back and they do it again and those demons just keep coming out, right? I'm talking like hands-on, measurable healing. I'm talking healing that's measured within activation of the brain centers that directly relate to healing. Healing within the prefrontal cortex, which immediately converts stress into strength, improves immune function, decreases blood sugar levels, decreases sugar cravings, increases sight, increases hearing, measurable healing. And I have yet to find anyone else that can measure with that level of specificity other than chiropractors. So, in my cult, what I do is I teach people how to actually heal with their hands, how to measure it, and then how to have certainty, because that's where the cult gets everyone back in, right? People want to leave, and then the stress of all the cult members. And if this is too far, like, look online right now, look at the public shaming that's happening as they're ramping up their fear tactics for vaccines, after we just learned that vaccines don't actually stop the transmission of anything. as a public health policy. So Colt uses the blame and the shame and their science, quote unquote, until people just forget that what they're saying is lies, which is easy to do because when you increase people's stress with fear and uncertainty, it diminishes their hippocampus. So they don't actually remember 2 weeks before. It's kind of the brilliance behind the whole 2 weeks to slow the spread thing. It's because scientists know you put people in an inactive environment, surrounded by artificial environment, and then flood them with negativity, you diminish their short-term memory. So it's like, you just make them do it for 2 weeks. They'll completely forget what they knew 2 weeks ago, and then you can make them do the next thing. It's kind of brilliant, isn't it? And the problem is, being healthier is the opposite. Being healthier, you have to continually seek to do the next thing. And that, my friends, is why leaving the cult is so hard. And so I ended up getting an EEG machine. And mainly because I was just so confused during the pandemic. Why has everyone had just this radical personality shift? They're nice, kind, loving, common sense people that used to brag about how they have such strong immune systems because they're teachers and they're exposed to all the junk and how that makes them so strong. And isn't that awesome to now all of a sudden be oh gosh, getting so sick of these kids, unable to remember who they even were. And so I ended up getting this EEG machine, and so I measured people's brains and electrical activity. And I have this software that converts it into a strengths and deficits, and then also coherence patterns. So, for example, if you ever heard of PTSD, it's someone experienced something traumatic and then a loud sound will put them into a panic attack. It's called coherence within the brain. There's an association between one thing and a extreme reaction. It's hardwired. So this EEG software shows these patterns in the brain. And so one trend that I noticed across the board is that everybody's temporal lobes were down regulated, which temporal lobes are associated with hearing. And then across the board, people had downregulation within the prefrontal cortex, which is the sequential planning and deductive reasoning, problem solving, but it's also the healing center of our brain. So, oftentimes I talk a lot about these advanced centers of the brain and how it makes us superhuman, but really it's simply the part of the brain that controls healing. So our ability to do things and then be better afterwards. Healing isn't just repairing, it is upgrading. And so I did this one study where I had these patients and then I did an EEG report. This whole 20-minute diagnostic process. You had to put them in a dark room and hook up all electrodes and then adjusted them and then did it again and adjusted them, did it again. And what I could show across the board with these brain reports is you could literally see the prefrontal cortex turning on, which that's not new research. That's been highly documented and demonstrated in New Zealand, the healing centers of the brain turned on. But this report showed it, and then it showed this posterior spreading that occurred. So it was activation from the front and then spreading to the back. So it was the prefrontal cortex turns on and then it just started talking within the rest of the brain. And then as the second, third adjustment went on, the brain patterns would quiet. So in essence, an example of a PTSD person, that war veteran, where loud sound equals danger, freak the fuck out, that association will go away. And that's why we have had so much success with PTSD veterans, including my younger brother. All of a sudden, being like, I got over it. Sure did, big fella. And the other interesting thing is that the orbitolateral prefrontal cortex, which turns on, is our part of our brain that forms our identity, right? So, in essence, our identity is made new. Does this sound familiar to anyone in the Bible? Believe in me, and you will be made new. Could he have been referring to say some bunch of bullshit words and then he'll go to heaven? Or could he have been referring to do what I do and activate the center of your brain that makes you new and improved? Coincidence? You know, I'm kind of at a point where I don't really see many coincidences anymore. I see a lot of planned and artfully executed interactions, but not many coincidences. So then you may say, okay, Devin, well, how is it that this experience in Washington State that screwed up so many people, yet I was able to maintain a somewhat studious observational impact and was unable to be shamed into compliance? I wondered this thing because I like to give people tools, and I don't know the answer. It could have been that I ran and trained through marathons. I did high levels of cardiovascular activity, which then continued to pump the cortisol through my body. It could be that I got adjusted multiple times a day through it all in order to then continue to make my brain new and allow my body to adapt. It could be from doing yoga and activating the vagus nerve through my diaphragm and activating the different receptors in my spine in order to keep my brain engaged. But there's another one that could be probable. So in high school, I was going to my friend's house. He was driving and I was a passenger. And he said, hey dude, I scared my friend Rory doing this one time. Ended up gunning it. Going 55 miles an hour. I can see it like it was yesterday in my mind's eye. Ends up where the road went from asphalt to gravel. Hit that. I almost acted like a ramp. And then he lost control. Swerved to the left. Hit the embankment. Very similar to this right here. Which then put the 4Runner into multiple rolls. Which then he didn't have his seatbelt on, but I did. So when we rolled, I reached out, grabbed a hold of him, which then, I guess, he was flying towards me. And it's just like a reflex thing. If you've ever been in a car accident, so you just put your arm out, And he wedged between me and the seat, pushed me out of the top part of my seatbelt. I went through the side window with my face and hit the ground. I remember seeing it. Boom. Seeing sky, dark, and then the final hit. Boom, hit my face in the ground. And then I woke up to Jesse. Oops, I shouldn't use his name. Screaming. I mean, that wasn't his name. Oh my God, I killed Devin. like, I'm not dead. I'm just like face down in gravel. And so I ended up, after this, I walked with a pretty noticeable leg drag and muscle spasms, headaches, emotional swings, anxiety, depression. Of course, my parents did what every good parent does. Took me to the medical doctor, because that's what you do. Because they're such good healers with their medicine. And then got put on addictive pain pills and muscle relaxers. And began my good old drug addiction like so many families do. And so my grades ended up plummeting. And it wasn't because of drug addiction. It was because I could no longer remember anything. I could start a conversation with somebody, and by the end of the conversation, I wouldn't know who that person was, how we started the conversation, or what we talked about. So in school, my grades just plummeted because majority of school is regurgitating information you have to memorize. And so I barely graduated high school with a 1 point, I think it's like 1.86, something like that. And then I went and worked construction. And I got a reputation for having such a good work ethic because I would run everyone on the job site. But it wasn't because I was like, I'm going to be the hardest worker. It's because I couldn't remember what they told me to do. So I just run as hard as I could to the job shack or whatever it was to get the thing that I needed to get. And I was highly motivated because if you've ever worked construction, there's something that I loved about construction that we don't do anymore, which is talk shit. And so make fun of people, call them out on their nonsense, be mean in the fun way. Now people just get their feelings hurt and it's not so much fun anymore. So, but I would just make fun of so much because I would go and I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot what I was supposed to get. Come back and I'm like, what are you, stupid? Oh, yeah, I am. And so I became highly motivated. And so fast forward, it's like with any kind of auto injury where a kid is hurt, and all these lawyers involved, and then I ended up going to like all these specialists because they wanted to ascertain my level of damage that I had occurred during this car crash. And so I ended up going to this neurologist, and they did all these tests on me, and it was like this whole day of testing. And then they did like a brain percentage of like ability report. So they said it was like 0 to 100%. 100% was average, 0 is fully disabled, and then above 100% is above average. So my short-term memory was like 25%. It was abysmal. And my short to long-term conversion was average. My long-term was average. But the thing that was interesting is that my problem-solving part of my brain, prefrontal cortex, was like 200 and something percent. And I said, well, how could this be? I said, well, the way the brain works is if it's able to form what's called neuroplasticity, it will compensate for damaged areas. So, for example, my memory centers were damaged in the car crash, my short-term memory centers. So therefore, because my brain was able to form neuroplasticity, it hypercompensated. My brain got really, really good at not relying on short-term memory. So in essence, prior to the pandemic, I've been operating with the software system that was induced during the pandemic. I was just too dumb. So everyone else who got stuck in home, stressed, poisoned, they got rid of their short-term memory. And it was like, oh, no, we never said it would just be 2 weeks. It's clearly going to be more. Oh, that makes sense. I've just been operating that way my whole adult life. And the reason why my story is a happy ending is because when I was in my darkest days, laying in bed, unable to sleep because of pain and racing thoughts, like I would just think to myself, if this is the way the rest of my life is going to be, is that life even worth living? And finally, after a year of that existence and being told, like, this is the way your life is going to be, here's bad injuries, so here's your drugs, just keep taking them, keep smoking weed, it works. Against my doctor's recommendation, somebody was like, why don't you go see a chiropractor? And I didn't believe in chiropractic. I knew that they weren't real doctors because I'd been taught that. Everyone knows that. And when I got adjusted the first time, my endorphins were so jacked. I got so lost on the way home. I was so like discombobulated. And then the next day I felt way worse. I was like, this witch doctor just cursed me. And then, but then the day after that, I was like, I can move a little bit better. Which then developed my hope, which then developed me to then get to a point where you wouldn't know that I struggled with walking when I was a teenager. You wouldn't know. I was told that was going to be the rest of my life. You would know that I'm the person that runs 16 miles a day to try to accomplish his goal of running the marathon, because that is what's required to break out of the cult of medicine. Is continually do the thing that they say is impossible and then show other people that it can be done. Almost like somebody else in the Bible. I don't know. Someone was like that. I forget. Okay. Last little bit up this miserable hill. See you tomorrow.